thing. I wanted to ask, since we have an expert on hand, I wanted to ask this simple question. Is it unusual for a person who is in a committed relationship to fall in love with another person? Is that rare? Is that odd? Okay, when that happens, I think that person has to make a decision. I'm going to crush that relationship and hurt that person and myself, or I'm going to crush the relationship I already have and hurt that person and myself, or I'm going to try to see if I can make the love stay in place in both ways. I really think it all comes down to that decision when you meet that next person. If you never meet that next person, it doesn't matter. But if you do, you got to make that call. And that was really all I wanted to contribute to this conversation.
And you know what, I like that you pulled that out, because that makes it very important for me to say this so that I clear up a couple things. One, as a clinician, there's nothing, I would say nothing against, even as a man, I would say nothing against any of the alternative lifestyles that I've heard. But as the soulmate specialist, that's a different area of my profession. So as a clinician of clinical psychology, it's all about what makes you, are you ego, what's called ego-syntonic, since the word ego was brought up. Is it ego-syntonic, meaning is it okay, is it working for your state of mind? Or is it ego-dystonic, meaning does it cause you mental distress or duress? That's the big issue clinically. If it's not causing you any mental distress, then you're fine. That's what the clinical field says. But as the soulmate specialist, there's a there's a different component with the spiritual piece. So what I would say is, so it was mentioned, is this in you? So one of the things spiritually, from a spiritual perspective, everything that's in you is not who you are. So there's an us that we're meant to be. And then there are things placed in us that we're born with that are directly meant to impede us and hinder us towards being that person. What the field of psychology calls that is a disconnect between your real self and your ideal self. The biggest gap between that causes the most people the most psychological disorders. The larger that gap, the more disorders you have, because we all have issues. So the bigger that gap, the more you have a disorder. So that's psychologically. But spiritually, what it is that we all have a dark side, if you will, since Star Wars is coming out, right? We all have a dark side, and that dark side is in us, but that's not who we're meant to be. So just because it's in you doesn't mean that that's who you are. It's actually things that are implanted in us that's directly supposed to be the very thing that we're supposed to fight through and grow through to get to who we're supposed to be. So what happens is this world is telling us to embrace your dark side, but that's the very same thing that the dark side in the movies, for example, tells Darth Vader to be. So if you want to be Darth Vader, go ahead and be Darth Vader, because it all comes down to free will choice. But at the end of the day, just know that everything that's in you does not mean that that's who you're supposed to be. There's a you that's supposed to be strong enough to fight through that to get to who you're supposed to be.
Well, I just would we just talked about this. Now you talked about it from the clinical aspect. I have listened to 2 different people tell us about their couples. And I've also listened to, and I asked the question earlier, and I think everybody glossed over it, and I think we went back to the financial aspect, because I think that y'all deluding yourselves as to what happens when these relationships dissolve. And a lot of the reason that it's one man, one woman, or one man, or whatever, the reason it's that way is the law is not interested in trying to disentangle your mess. Okay, yeah. Because now here you are, and you're talking about, well, if something were to happen, it don't work that way. They a married couple. They own that house in the entirety. You don't get 1/3. You'll get what'll be 1/6, unless you have gone to see a lawyer before you got started and you tried to make that what it was. If you are talking about your kids, what could happen is some other, so your husband decides to divorce you or whatever, and he leaves you for some other woman. Well, you know what? Your husband could take your kids on away, because then he could go to DHS and try to say she's a woman of low moral character, and I can't leave my kids over there with that. Or, it's a whole bunch of different dynamics that go on, and I think that we're not addressing those. Okay. We're going to get caught in the Jesus show, but Danyel's always caught in the legal show.
So I will address that, because when as a single woman, if I decide to leave this man, I'm still single. I am single. I am not legally tied to him in any way. So when I leave with what I have, which is my own. I'm not looking to him to give me something or support me. So if I decide to leave this relationship, I have something of my own that I will already be okay with. So just like when me and my husband decided to divorce, what did I have to do? We got divorced, but I still had to start over. The man doesn't have to start over. The woman always has to start over. Because when in that case, when
Who was your lawyer?
Well, I'm saying the woman starts over because for a man it's easier. He doesn't lose his status. He doesn't lose what he already had. For me, when I walked out, when I decided enough is enough, I stayed in a marriage much longer than I should have because I was trying.
When he was cheating, did you cheat on him?
No, I did not. I was truly faithful to my husband for 25 years. And I stayed probably 17 years longer than I should have. Because in my mind, I took a vow, I'm going to stay with him. He made that decision to cheat. And only on the 6th time did I decide, okay, enough is enough. I'm not going to, I'm not going to stay.
Do you think that he kept cheating because he wanted you to leave? Or do you think he just kept cheating because you made it easy for him to do it? Or
it was because he could.
Or do you think, because this is the thing. When you just talked about it earlier, you said, well, the woman said that I would have left him the first time.
Right.
And here you were trying to have your forsaken all others and you were trying to do your vows. But at the same time, he was like, oh, she good with this?
Right.
I can continue to do me.
Exactly. And so I had to come to the realization that this is not going to work. And when I came to the realization that it wasn't going to work, that's when I decided, okay, the marriage is over. So when the marriage was over, I had thought in my mind, okay, if it happens and I get married again, it'll happen. It never crossed my mind to be in a polyamorous relationship. This isn't something that was in my mind like, oh, okay, now I'm going to go out and find me a man that's already with someone else. That was not how that happened. It developed out of a friendship that he just happened to be married. And that was how it was. It wasn't like I wanted to go into this relationship. Everyone always asks me, did you ever believe you would be living in a household with a husband and wife? No, absolutely not. But because I am doing my happy. I'm finding my joy, and my joy is being with him. That is all that matters to me.
All right, well, we're coming to the end. I want to go, Niki, but then I also wanted to ask you, like, your dynamic is so different. Yours is more so that you have a desire for a woman and a man. And I wanted to know what exactly makes you desire, because I never did this, what makes you desire a woman? I just want to know. I ask Tasha this all the time, so.
Same desire that someone would have for the opposite sex. I have the same for the same sex.
Did you know you were bisexual before you got married?
No. Well, or it could have been back of my mind, but I never entertained the thought.
Is it, what I'm saying is, anybody can lick you. What is it about the woman that makes you want, what else is it? All you can do is lick. What is it about the woman that you like boobies? You got your own boobies. What is it?
But it's not all sexual. It's not about what she has, a tongue or, you know what I mean? It's not all about the sexual thing. It's emotional. It's everything. It's not just, I don't really know the words to explain it, but it's not really about licking. Like, well, a guy has a tongue too.
Would you ask that of your friend that, like, I don't want to be with a woman, but would you ask me the same question? Why do I want to be with a man? That's the same. That is on the same level of why are you asking her why she likes to be with a woman?
Because a man comes with a part that.
But you can buy that. You can buy that. But you can, right? So even as a heterosexual woman, I can buy that. So why do I like a man? I like a man because that's who I am. That's what I like.
And I'm with a woman, and we don't always use penis to have sex. We can have great sex without her using a toy.
But is it sex without penetration? See, because my president said that oral don't count.
You can still have an orgasm without using a penis.
But that's kind of where Shelly is coming from. If there is no penetrative device or anything used, then there's what is being provided that a man could not
You can have an
provide.
orgasm grinding on somebody. You can have one.
What? So why a
What
What
woman?
I'm saying is,
It's
what
true.
makes you
Mentally.
desire a woman? Like, if you can penetrate with
It's
anybody,
mentally.
if she's with a man, she's married to a man, right? She's married to a man, but she's saying something in her is saying, I want this woman too. What? What is it?
Okay. This is Ms. Niki Phelps, okay? And let me tell y'all, we're talking about two things, sex and love. Sex and love are two different things. Can we just separate that today? You can have sex with somebody and not love them, and you can be in love with somebody and not sexually compatible and having sex with them. The best sex to have is having sex with somebody you love. Let's just put it out there. Number two, me personally, my favorite sex is mental sex. So if you can give it to me in my mind, guess what? You. If you give it to me in my mind, I'm like you and you and you and you and you and you. However, the man that really blew my mind, I'm married. Okay? But now there's somebody else that can blow my mind. Go ahead, feel free, try. I'm with it. But guess what? Nobody makes
Wait a
me
minute, you got me
feel
looking
the
at him
way
in a whole
he
different way.
makes me feel.
Stop.
He
You
is
got me
my
looking at him in a whole-
favorite.
Stop. Could you stop?
Okay.
Don't make me
For
look at
those
him
of you
like
who
that.
aren't married, you have a hard time maybe understanding polyamorous relationships because you haven't found one person to love. So to talk about two people or three people to love, your mind can't think in multiple directions. All I'm trying to say is there are different type of relationships other than monogamy. Now, if you try them and you don't like them, that's okay. But just know that there are other relationships out there.
And with that particular point, for me, for example, and just to give a real quick example of what I meant about fortitude, is that for me, polyamory would have been very, very, very easy in many areas, in many time points of my life. Very easy to take that road. But the road that I'm walking is extremely difficult.
Oh, that I'm walking.
Polyamory is not
difficult.
easy.
I'm not saying for any one person.
We're just
what
talking
I'm
about
saying,
people
what
being
earlier what you just said was that you said that it's tough for some people to find one person to love. And what I was saying is, for an example, it was very easy for me to find not only multiple people that I loved, but that loved me and would have been in that kind of situation. But the kind of fortitude, just to speak about the fortitude that I was talking about for what is being considered traditional, and it's not about tradition, it's more about form and function. So when you ask the question about why can you ask this situation, well, what's up with this, and not ask a woman why does she want to be with a man, is because the difference is that one situation, that alternative situation, has a form but no function. What I mean by that is when you have any homosexual or a lot of the alternate lifestyles, right, choices, there's a form to it. Because you can have sex. Like you said, a lot of things can provide you stimulation where you can have an orgasm, but no function. Because there's no ability for there to be, on a spiritual level, what's called spiritual transformation or spiritual translation. That's one. Two, on the second thing is you can't have children from that union. So there's no function to it. So there's form, but no function. Whereas when a man and a woman get together, one of the reasons why that question isn't being asked is because you have both form and function.
That form goes right
I mean,
into
you
your
can
function. She got.
You can
ahead,
be in
go
a
ahead.
relationship with someone and still not want to have kids. But to go back to being in love with someone, just because you may love multiple people doesn't mean that you have a commitment to them. And to keep that commitment going, it can be very difficult. And I'll tell you that, being married is a work in progress every day. And being in a polyamorous relationship is 3 times that work in progress every day. So, right, exactly. But you have to find that person or people that want to work together to keep that commitment. And as far as being bisexual, same thing that attracts you to men attracts me to women. I like a masculine touch. I also like a feminine touch. So.
Oh, I get you. I don't want a feminine touch, but go ahead.
I just want to follow up question with his comment, as he was saying, in his past he thought polyamorous would have been the ship for him to easily board. But my question is to you: why do you think polyamory would have been so easy for you when you're not married now? There's so much diversity in polyamory. So I mean, for you to balance and have and nurture and culture so many people in a relationship of polyamory, why would you think that it would be so easy?
I'm very glad you asked that question, because that's the reason why I'm not married, and the only reason why I'm not married is because I walk the very path that I'm teaching and preaching about. So I walk this soulmate path. So I could have been married multiple times by now, but because I have relinquished my free will choice for God and God's choice and who He has made for me, which is what this path is all about, that's why I'm not married. So if I was not walking this path, I would have been married. And I also could have had, if I was open to it and if I felt that it was in me, I could have had multiple wives. I definitely have several people who I know would have been down for that had I made that kind of proposition. But because I'm walking this particular path that excluded all of that, that's why none of those situations would work, because that did not have the design in it for what God had for me.
Well, you know what I see in the irony of all of this? We done talked about everybody's choices and everybody will, and everybody's trying to be on a higher level and talk about how they're open, but everybody's very provincial in their thoughts anyway. And the reason I say that, I'm going to take it back to some key statements that were made today. Well, you don't know because you ain't got no kids. You don't know because you ain't never been married. You don't know because you can't even find one husband or wife. No, maybe we've sat back here and we have made our own decisions about what it is that we want our lives to look like, and we've made different choices. It ain't hard to get pregnant. It ain't really hard to get married. It ain't hard to find one person. It is very hard to raise successful children. It is very hard to have a successful relationship. And it is very hard to have a successful marriage, whatever that is. And so I just want to say, I just wanted to open that up because everybody, oh, and I'm open. No, I want everybody to think about their own prejudices and their own biases that we have brought to the table here today, and we've talked about this from whatever side of the table that we come from, be it, pro polyamory or con polyamory or whatever it is, that you have brought your own different biases to this conversation. I've enjoyed them all. It's been very interesting. I've brought mine as well, but I just want you to know that.
Well, that was the end of the show. The tape is full, and we can't do no more.
Yeah, keep it going, because I was getting ready to come.
You can keep it going. The conversation keep going, but Howard stopped taping.